Okay, 18650s 101. No matter how you get your cells, whether you're buying laptop battery packs, whether you're buying individual cells, say from a company like Battery Hookups, come to you in individual cells, pre-tested, or you're tearing them out of laptop packs, battery packs, wherever you're getting your 18650s from. I'm not going to tear this pack apart. This is actually a good pack. It goes into a laptop. But the gist of it, I'm sure you can figure it out. Buy these, or wherever you're getting them from, tear them apart, and inside of them will be 18650 lithiums. There'll be strings of them. So you get a bunch of packs, you tear them all down, now you get all these random cells hanging around. Some of them, these all have been used or something of some sort at some time in various things. So some that have not, you will simply have the tabs on the top from where the strips were sonic welded. Some of these have got solder on them from where I used them in a different project. But anyway, so now you got all these random cells that you tore out from all the packs. What do we do with them? Well, to simply get started, you're going to want to know whether they're good, bad, or ugly cells. It doesn't take much. Use a voltmeter. It can be digital, it can be analog. It doesn't matter what you're using as long as you can read voltage. Get your cells. Lay them out. Don't worry about the numbers on them. We'll get to that later. And then you can just simply run down through them and check them. 3.34, 3.73, 3.66. That might be a dead one. That is a dead one. So, that is a dead one. That's less than a volt. We don't want that one. Get rid of that. 4.07, 4.1, and so on. You'd want to do it to the rest of the packs. I'm not even going to bother with going through them. So, once you get rid of all the cells that are bad, then you're left with trying to figure out the capacity of them. Okay? Let's say, for instance, you wanted to build a 4S by 4 parallel, 4 in series, 4 in parallel pack to do, say, a 12-volt lead-acid battery replacement. You could simply go along, plop these down in any random fashion. These are the cheap little eBay or AliExpress 4 by 5 cell holders, and you could simply just pull them out. Start throwing them down there in any random order that you'd want to. You know, our brain says let's pick patterns, so let's go with the 4 blue. We've got 4 in this color, so let's put these all together. Then we've got 2 in this color still, so we'll put those there. Put another 2 that kind of match those. Now we've got these randoms. Pink, green, no sleeve, and a red. There's a 4 by 4. You can simply put your top on there if you want to, and then go from there. If you want to spot weld strips, or if you want to do the Tesla styles with the copper brass strips and fuses, you can do it that way. That's not a problem. But I can show you that there is a difference between doing it the right way and a wrong way. I call it a wrong way just for the simple fact that if you just throw these cells together, it will create a pack, don't get me wrong, but it is not a purpose-built pack. It would just be a random pack. Not all of these are going to equal the same capacity, so even though this row is in parallel with this one and this one and this one, they're not all going to be the same across the board. So what you can actually do is, instead of just randomly throwing them in there, you can order a charge tester. So just simply a Latticala. I have 2 of these, and then you can individually take cells, throw them down in there, comes up, too much glare. I don't know if it reads it. That might be that dead one. .48, normal test at a 1 amp rate. It's going to charge that cell at 1 amp rate all the way up to 4.2, and then it's going to discharge it. And if I remember right, the paperwork says this will only discharge at a 1/2 amp rate. I know it says 1 amp or 1,000 milliamps, but I'm pretty sure the discharge cycle is only a 1/2 amp. Either way, it's going to charge it all the way to 4.2. Discharges it all the way, and it checks for the capacity, and then it will charge it all the way back up to 4.2 when it's done. When it's done, it'll have a little end blinking over here, and your capacity will be read out in the middle of the screen. So plop all 4 of them down in there, wait 8, 10, 12 hours, however long it takes, come back, take a simple Sharpie, and whatever the capacity readout is, write it on your cell. Once it's fully charged, then run through all of them that way. And now you're back to a full box of 16 cells. Since they've all went through the charger, and they've all been charged up to 4.2 volts, you'll want to let them sit for 2 to 4 weeks and check to see if they're self-discharging. Then you can pull them back out after 2 or 4 weeks, take the voltmeter to them again, and start reading them. They started out at 4.2, so if after 2 to 4 weeks, if you're coming up on cells that are reading, 3.4, 3.5, or something of that sort, you can pick your own level of discharge. I mean, there's plenty of websites or plenty of people that will argue with you what a bad discharge rate is and what a good one is. But anyway, anything for me after 4 weeks, I look at it like about 0.1 volt per week, and that's kind of loose, but that's a rough math that I use. So after 2 weeks, if I check these, anything below 4 volts, that's discharging a little faster for me. So I tend to move that over to the side, and then keep on going through the pack. Obviously, if you have ones that after 2 or 4 weeks it's down to 3 volts, that's going to be a real bad cell. It's just going to discharge itself and pull from the other packs that are in parallel to try and keep itself charged, and it's going to suck the life out of the other ones that it's nearby. So you don't want those. Okay. So now let's go over the difference between just randomly throwing a pack together and purposely putting a pack together. So I'd done this earlier. Unfortunately, after 15 minutes of recording, I found out the microphone was off. So I went and typed this up, make it look a little better, a little cleaner. I took all of these cells earlier, I put all the blue ones in this row, which is indicated by the lower numbers. These ultrafire, take a second here, these ultrafires or trust fires, whatever fires, all these cells that you can find really cheap on eBay, claiming large numbers of 5,000 milliamps, 6,000. I've seen them all the way up to 9,900 milliamps. Do not trust them. They are not a decent cell. Buy decent cells. I forget how it happened. I ended up with a box of 50 of these. All of them tested at, I would say, 1,200 milliamps and below. So this entire 4 that I brought with me was 828, 622, 797, and 826. And those are uncycled cells. I never even actually used them anything other than just to build a giant pack, 1 brick with them. So it was just 1 big lithium. So anyway, I put these out like this earlier. These are the 4 blues. These are the 4 light greens, and then 2 more. And so all these numbers, I put them in here, and what it does is that when you're down here at the bottom, it will show that just by randomly building a pack, you have now come up on this row is 5506 milliamps, this is 3073, 4880, and 4806. So even though you have a 4S by 4 parallel pack, and it will function, the only problem is that this entire pack is only as good as the weakest cells. So in this case, since we just randomly threw it together, brain said group all the blues together, this made us one cell, or one parallel set, that came in at just over 3 amps of rate. So down here, a random pack gives you a 4S 4P pack at a 3000 milliamp rate. So you can do it, don't get me wrong, it will function, but if you were to take all of these out, rearrange them, actually doing it the correct way, you would take and go through a site like repacker.com, and that is REPACKR. There's no E in between there. .com. You can go there. You can take every one of these cells, plug it in, 1018, and then you put a comma, and then 1340, put a comma, 828, put a comma. Go through all of your cells, and at the bottom it'll ask you how many you want in series and how many you want in parallel. Then you can click Build My Pack, and what it will do is it will rearrange all of these cells. I'm not going to rearrange them now, there's no point in it, but it will put them together so that you have essentially the best pack possible. And by rearranging them to a purpose-built pack, you now have a 4588, 4561, 4585, and a 4591, which with a purpose-built pack is of 4561 milliamps. A difference of 1488 milliamps total between a purpose-built pack and a random pack. Purpose-building packs, I mean, this is only 1488 milliamps, and this is only a 4x4. If you're, say, doing huge amounts, say you're wanting to do it for power walls or, you know, bicycle, who knows, and you start building them in huge quantities, and you stack them together, and let's say you just want to run all of these in parallel, and these in parallel, and so on, you can see just in 16 cells you have a difference of essentially 1500. When you start building large packs like this, how much difference you could have between one row and another. So under a random pack, you're only going to be able to discharge down 3000 milliamps. So you're not going to be able to get, you know, this 5500 to feed into this 3000, because this is a series connection, not a parallel. See, these are all in parallel, so these feed across, which is shown down here. So you take a bigger cell and you group it with a smaller cell, and so when this starts to discharge too far, this one can help compensate for it. That's why you have these total numbers down here. And then you start running in series. So can you build them random? Yes, you can. Is there a purpose way to build them? Yes, there is. Anything that has to do with these lithiums, it is worth taking the time to actually build them in a purpose manner to get the best packs that you can with what you have. Because let's face it, you're doing this for a purpose. If you're actually recycling cells or you're buying secondhand cells, you're trying to save money of some sort. So don't waste your time, don't waste your money of just throwing cells in there and, you know, not checking them for voltage or not checking them for self-discharge, because that is only going to hurt you in the long run. You can take one cell in this row that is self-discharging, this pink one that we had earlier. That one tested out at basically 0 volts just a little while ago. That's after 4 weeks of sitting still. So if I were to have just charged that up to 4.2, threw that in parallel with these other three, even though you would think that that would have capacity of 1878 when it was tested. Essentially, it's going to self-discharge, and when it does, it's going to start trying to draw power from these three because they are in parallel with it, which is going to reduce your overall pack efficiency. So, obviously, you get rid of your bad cells. You get good cells, put them in the place of it, then you have a better pack. Now, I also have bought 100 cells from battery hookups, and I tested all 100 of them, and they all came out, 2600 milliamps or thereabout. There was some further up. I have another video down in the description that's a link to it that'll give you all the numbers, etc. But even if I were to do, there's 16 cells in here, and even though these are all relatively 2614, 2606, I know there's some 25s in here somewhere, 2598. Even though they're all relatively within, say, 100 milliamps of one another, I'm still going to take the time to purpose build the pack through Repacker. So that way, when you do put them together, you don't have this one with so much capacity that it can never fully charge, and this one with not enough capacity and it's overcharging. So I will leave this at session 101. Next up, I will try and do a 102 and go a little bit more in depth to actually building a small pack with some of these junk cells, just so that way we can get a battery 102, how to put them together, which ways you can go about it, spot welding, etc. So until session 102 comes out, as usual, like, subscribe, get notified, share if possible, and we will see you in 102.